Welcome to the Gray Range Podcast. My name is David Rousseau. We're going to explore the poetry of how we live, how we learn, and how we find our way along this strange path we call life. If you are curious about people, their stories, and all things savage and wonderful, join me on the Gray Range.
Before we even get started.
What a way to begin.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So we're back with another episode of the Gray Range Podcast. And today we are here with Charles. Is the last name Stewart?
No, so my last name's Biegel. My middle name is Stewart.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. So I didn't really want to name after my first name. That'd be a little awkward maybe. But yeah, so I just, Stewart Leather is for my middle name. So
Right. And you're doing leather work here in Grand Prairie.
I am.
I am the proud owner of one of your the Man Belt.
The Man Belt, yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. So it's a 1 3/4 inch thick piece of stiff bridle leather.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a small dude, so I need a good belt. Like I was saying earlier, I'm pretty hard on equipment, so I'm always looking out for a good belt. And your because I was looking, it started popping up in my algorithm, some stuff, and I saw your Instagram, and just like in everything, when you see something that as you're like thumbing through Instagram, the moment you try to go back, it's gone.
Yeah.
So it totally disappeared, and then there was another outfit that was doing leather work, and I thought it was you.
Okay, yeah.
So then I was like, that doesn't look right. So then I started Googling like Grand Prairie leather work, and then your Instagram came up again, and I was able to track you down. And I was like,
okay, sure.
This is exactly what I'm looking for. And then once I started looking at it, I was like, yeah, I'd like to have a chat with this guy, see how you got into leather work. But how we start all of these is with a piece that I write. I'm a writer of
awesome.
Something like poetry. I don't know what I would call it. I've been told it's not. I've been told it is.
It is. It's not what you might think is like classical poetry, maybe.
I don't know.
Sure.
I don't know what it is, but we're going to get into it.
Man's poetry.
Maybe. Something like that. Maybe. Anyway, this is a piece called Plastic Islands. I can't tell if you were always like this. A broken metaphor or something more. A brilliant crisis. I guess I never understood or tried to understand. I guess I really didn't give a damn. Crushed by the waves, imploding under pressure, the way a vacuum sucks. You used to seek such treasures, never quitting, never had enough. But life is a slippery willy. Just when you think you have it in the clutch, you're going overboard, lost again, and no one gives a fuck. The sea is full of discarded plastic, islands of our throwaway charade. No more consequences. Come and see the paradise we've made. Drifting garbage archipelagos, testaments to our accidental godhood. No good deed goes unpunished. Clinging to the morass, floating under the same stars that drove us apart. Society never had a place for a plastic heart. But now here we are, watching you work this careful art. Love like this is both terrible and wonderful. I never gave you any credit, called you a throwaway friend. Before all this ends, I want to walk on your crazy garbage island. You've made me see how lovely and how horrible it can be. I'm sorry that I ever doubted you.
The original intent of these was like he would use a piece of poetry to launch. It was like a catalyst to spark a conversation. And now I'm not sure how we're going to tie that to leatherworking, but
well, here's how, because I don't always know how these things come into being, like why I write what I write. I just write. But this one was because I kind of went down this rabbit hole of there's big like islands of garbage out in like the Pacific Ocean. And there's a guy, I can't remember, there's probably more than one, who like built his own floating island out of garbage and lives on it. So it's built of like plastic refuse and pop bottles and plastic drums, and he built like a shack on it, and he just lives out there like on his own island. And I'm like, that's genius, man. Like
No
taking
taxes.
taking the throwaway of the world, the garbage of the world, and just like, whatever, I'm gonna live on it. So it was that kind of
Huh. Something else, hey?
Yeah, exactly. It kind of speaks to that creative piece of the world where we don't always recognize it when someone's doing something different, when someone's kind of thinking outside the box as to what life is or how to live, right? So this guy didn't own any land, but there's plenty of free garbage. So he just decided to build his own floating island and live on that.
Wild.
Yeah. So
Yeah. It's like his own way of recycling the waste of the world, I guess.
yeah, absolutely. Like turning something that was, that nobody wants to see into something, because it's beautiful. It's this beautiful multicolored structure and all this stuff. And it's like that one guy just decided to kind of go his own way, strike out on his own.
Mm-hmm.
And, he could be living as a bum on the beach, but instead he's living on his own little private floating island. Whether or not it like survives hurricanes and stuff, I have no idea. But yeah, that's kind of where that came from.
He's probably not too worried about it.
No, probably not, because he can just build another one out of more garbage.
For sure.
Because there's plenty of that. So I guess let's start at the beginning. Like, where did you grow up?
Well, I grew up in Grovedale. So 20 minutes south of Grand Prairie.
Yeah.
And we grew up on I have 11 siblings.
Oh, wow.
And then my parents. So there was 13 of us total. Yeah.
That's a huge family, man.
Yeah, it was a big family. And I'm the oldest boy and have one other brother. All the rest are girls.
Oh, dear.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. So that's 9 girls?
Yeah, 9
And 2
girls.
boys.
9 girls and 2 boys.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. So
That's pretty awesome.
yeah, it was
Did
quite
are your parents from this area, or did they?
Yeah,
come
actually,
here?
well, so yeah, my mom, she is more from this area. My dad's from Fairview.
Oh,
So
okay.
they're both like pretty local, yeah.
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 Seem to run into these Fairview connections quite a bit.
Well, it's right up the road, right?
Yeah, it is. It's far enough away. Like that, I don't think of it as immediately as like Wembley or Beaver Lodge and all that, but it's a nice spot, Fairview, though.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, Grovedale's cool too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cool people that live out that way. It's kind of a neat part of the world.
Kind of a pretty redneck community, actually.
That's a fact.
That describes a lot of this area.
Yeah.
But I like that area towards Grovedale myself, just because I'm from the mountains. So the further down that road you go, the more you can see the mountains.
Oh, I know. But that was one of my favorite things of growing up in Grovedale, was having the mountains in the backyard. It was just like,
Yeah.
you could just, like, it's, I don't know, like a 2-hour drive, and you're out right in the middle of the Rockies, like one of my favorite places to be. So yeah, that was pretty cool.
Absolutely. So did you go to school in Grovedale? Did you go to school in like Grand Prairie? How did that work out?
We actually homeschooled. So
Okay.
Oh, nice.
You're not the first homeschool guest we've had.
no, okay.
There seems to be something about this creative endeavor that comes from people who maybe were raised in a way that allowed them to think outside the box and not have this linear, go to school, go to university, get a job sort of thing that we see quite a bit.
Yeah.
I definitely noticed that there's a little more freedom in that kind of upbringing, just judging by the people that we've had on the podcast and spoken with.
Right.
So was that something your parents kind of instilled in you? Was it kind of an ability to be creative?
Yeah, very much. So we actually grew up, one of the biggest pieces of education that we had that really forged creative abilities in us was music. Our parents put us through a lot of music. So,
Right.
Pretty much all of us, like I've got my grade 8 in piano, and then I went on to bass guitar and singing and some different instruments.
Right.
And the rest of my siblings big into music. And the thing is with music is it exercises both sides of your brain. It's not like math exercises one side. I'm not sure which side it is, but it exercises both sides. Music exercises both sides. So it's very balanced in the way it develops your brain.
Yeah.
When tackling other problems in life.
Yeah. And I've seen some, I think I was just watching a video just this last week of like this, I'm assuming it's a family from the U.S., it's Appalachian music. So I'm assuming that it's from, that part of the country. but they're probably all under the age of 14. There's about half a dozen of them playing like some of the best banjo, mandolin, bluegrass that I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And I'm always a sucker for a mandolin. If I hear a mandolin, I'm like, I'm in 100%. That's
Does
how
that
you
come
win
on
me
vinyl?
over.
Yeah.
That's how you win me over. But that's pretty cool. Did you guys play music as a family then?
Yeah, we did. We actually did. We traveled around as a family all over like Western Canada and in BC, Southern Alberta.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, we traveled around, did lots of concerts, and we've done for like the Beaver Lodge Jamboree. We've done music there.
Oh, right, because they've got like their gospel jamboree out there. I've always wanted to check that out. That sounds like a good time.
Yeah, no, it's a great time. So yeah, we had a lot of fun traveling around and doing music together. So
that's really cool. So was there any kind of like I guess like an expectation for like a formal education, or was that something that was that something your parents wanted for you, or were you just kind of once you kind of finished your homeschooling you just kind of just decided on your own?
Yeah, so it was kind of like pretty much that. So it was like a little bit more of a unschooled way, not that we weren't like schooled, like we had our basics mapped out, right? But then from there it was kind of like pretty much all of us ended up being like self-employed and entrepreneurs and that sort of thing is kind of where that went, just because the way we thought and our thought patterns and stuff.
Right.
So that's kind of where it went from there. Like, yes, like my sisters, Amber and Julia, Julia's nickname is Goo. And so they started up a business and they called it Amber Goo, and it's actually spruce gum. They actually chop up off the sap from the spruce trees and they put it through a refining process and make it into gum pieces, and then you can chew it for like 3 days.
Yeah. Are they on Instagram too?
They are, yeah.
Okay, because I think that was in my feed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that all right. Sometimes you wonder why this stuff populates, and you're like, where's that coming from? Like,
and that would be why.
It's cool. I'm like, I would probably chew that, but okay.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's super cool. Like it's it's just been an amazing business model for them. So
that's very cool. Yeah. So your parents kind of did they instill that entrepreneurial spirit? Like, did your parents run their own businesses?
Yeah. So like my dad, he's done some property development and that sort of thing. Okay. And like for the family, and my mom, she was more like stay at home, and
I would imagine
obviously like with that many children, with that many children and homeschooled. So she would stay at home, and then, so it's kind of been that way. So
very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So how did you land on leatherworking?
So when I was 12 years old, I started making knives. I just had this amazing fascination with
making all 12-year-old boys do.
Yeah, right? So anyway, so I started making knives, and then I was like, well, I want to make sheaths for them, right? And I was getting my friend to, I don't know if you know, like VR Saddlery. You maybe seen him.
I've heard of it.
Going by DeBolt there. He's got a sign up.
Yeah.
Anyways, I got one of his sons to make knife cases for me, but then I wanted to start doing them myself, so I could kind of have the whole deal, kind of my thing. And then, so on one of our family tours, we went down to Lethbridge and we did a concert at the Gem of the West Museum there. And I met this older fellow. His name's Andy McCallum. And, so he was in the audience, and after the concert, he came up to me and he was like, there's something different about this boy. That's what he told me afterwards. And anyways, we struck up a good conversation, and I found out he did leatherwork, and I was like, hey, you got some tools for me? And he's like, yeah, I got some tools for you. So we met up after at his place and bought some tools from him, and then I just started making the knife cases, and then found out guys just wanted really good belts, and I was getting all kinds of guys coming to me for good belts because it's hard to find good belts anymore.
Oh yeah.
And so that's kind of where that started.
Okay, cool. So what led to the development of the man belt?
Well, so I just used to make the 1.5 inch because that's just what everybody had, right? It's standard, right?
Yeah.
And but then I had this one guy come out to me, and he was like, "It's the 1.5 inch. It doesn't matter what 1.5 inch belt I have. It's always turning over in my belt loops when I put it on, right? Because you put it on, and then it like flips over, and then you come around, and it's like
backwards,
right?
Yeah.
So then he's like, make me a 1 3/4 inch belt. Okay. So I did that, and he absolutely loved it. So then I made one for my dad, and he loved it. And then another guy, and then I was like, this thing is like only guys can wear it because women's belt loops are too narrow.
Right.
So So then I just started making the man belt, as I call it. I called it the man belt after I just found out I just sold it to guys. So
yeah.
So that was kind of the development of that.
No, that's very cool, man. I liked the some of your promotional stuff that you did on Instagram. Like, how did you conceive of turning that into a business, and then think about doing the promotional end like that? Like, none of that doesn't come from nowhere, right?
No, it sure doesn't. No, so I started out because I've been doing like leatherwork for like 7 years. I'm 20 years old now.
Okay,
and so I always just struggle. I was like, I can make plenty of product, but I'd like to be able to make this a full-time gig, but I can't figure out how to sell it enough to keep up with what I can make, right?
Right.
And so I tried different things. I got my belts in at Crooked Creek and at Resource Purchasing in town.
Okay.
And that helped a lot to kind of carry me over and stuff. But then just tried selling it online, making up like YouTube or YouTube channel, Instagram, and that sort of thing, doing like organic growth.
Right.
And it was really slow. So then I got this really extensive course in e-commerce, and they showed you how to, and it's more like paid ads, which is totally different. Like when people watch organic content, they don't want to be sold on something. If they stop to watch an ad, they're expecting to have a pitch made to them and try and convince them to buy something, right? And so it's a whole different style of marketing. And so I took the course. It was like 3 months. Okay. And learned like really good copywriting and ad creative and all that sort of stuff. So it's like it takes a long time to write the script to figure out, especially when you're starting out. When you've done quite a bit of it, it gets more fluent, right, and easier to write, and you know what your audience is, what jives with your audience and whatnot. But yeah, so I just started doing that, and then it kind of, things have been getting better. Like I first launched like 16 ads, and one of them converted, right? Because I was just trying to figure out what is my avatar or preferred customer. Yeah. What jives with them, and what is it that what they like, right? And I tried one where it was like really like pitching them like a real, kind of salesy kind of thing. Didn't work. But then the one that really worked was just me sitting in my cabin in the leather shop, just talking about my story, the product. I'm just really like,
I'm going to say that one worked on me.
Yeah. Right.
That was the one. Yeah.
Yeah. It was very, very authentic. I liked it.
Yeah, that's right. So so that's kind of where that went. And so now like when you get the system dialed in, then it's kind of like you put some money in and then you get some out, and I mean, you get a lot of costs and whatnot. You get a lot of variable costs when you're running paid ads, but when you get the system up and running, it starts to work for you. So
yeah, we haven't gone down that road yet. Our web designer still owes us one paid ad, so we'll figure out the format on that and how that's going to look.
Whatever it takes to feed the algorithm,
yeah, because all of our product, like it's like we're wearing these T-shirts, we've got some stickers, we got a few things. It's all done through Printful, so they kind of look at these different developers, like who makes T-shirts and stuff like that, and then they source it all. So it's basically this. It's kind of like drop shipping, but it's doing it with a host of different developers. So you might order one shirt from our website and it's done by one guy, one other one might be done by another outfit.
Oh, okay.
And then it all gets kind of consolidated through one broker and sold out that way. And that way I don't have to keep a garage full of boxes of T-shirts.
Yeah.
Which is
the stock does start to take up a lot of room.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's I'd like to work with some local printers and stuff like that on a few short run limited edition T-shirts.
Podcast belts.
Oh, maybe, who knows? Maybe we'll collab on something. I don't know. I'm a big fan of leather. I think it's partially from like I love the Western culture and Western lifestyle stuff. I'm also like an old punk rocker from my childhood. So like both of those have this like love of leather. Yeah. So whenever I see like quality leather stuff, and that's how I was with the belt, because when I was doing a lot of shooting, I wanted a good gun belt, and good gun leather is not easy to find in Canada. Lots of people are doing leather, but good gun leather, you basically have to go to the U.S. So I talked to a gentleman out of Montana, and he was doing this like double thick English bridle leather, and it was only about 1.5 inches, but it was stiff, like really, really stiff. And I wore that belt daily for 15 years, and until now I was just starting to get a little bit soft, like as leather does over time. And that's what kind of got me down the road. I was like, man, there's got to be a market for this particular thing in this area, because I always kind of wonder a little bit, because there's so much Western culture in Northern Alberta and Alberta in general.
Yeah.
That I'm always kind of surprised. Like when I bought that smoke wagon, when I bought that 45 long Colt pistol from you.
Oh yeah.
And I started looking around for, like, I wanted some gun leather, and I was like, oh, there's not that many people in Western Canada or in Alberta doing that sort of thing. But it was one of those things where I'm like, there should be a big market for this stuff out here. So do you have kind of like a clientele that's in that, like maybe that rodeo or that Western world, in that cowboy world, and where's kind of the furthest afield that you've sold one so far?
Well, I sell to the States. Actually, I've started doing that within the last month or so.
Okay.
And so I actually sell quite a few to the States. They're really liking my stuff too, which is really good. But yeah, so like that's probably about the farthest I think I've sold product to so far.
Okay. That makes sense. And then for your clientele, do you know if there's a particular demographic that's buying your stuff?
Yeah, like a specific avatar. What I've found is really just like blue collar workers, and that's like blue collar workers. They're really hard on their gear, right? Because they're just putting it to the grind day in and day out, and so and they always get these like belts and whatnot from Marks that are just like bonded leather, right? Like genuine leather, and they just fall apart. So I was like, because that was pretty much who I was selling all my belts to before I went on to Instagram and Facebook. And so I was like, then that kind of helped me to create the proper messaging in my ads to connect with those people. So I do sell some to like cowboys and stuff, but I don't know, a lot of those guys just like to get like the really fancy stuff, which I kind of get. And then you get those from like Keddies and stuff, but it lasts about a year, so
they don't last. I've looked at belts there before, and I was like, it's not really. I would just much prefer to buy something that's made by a craftsman, made by somebody who's working with the leather, as opposed to something that's made overseas somewhere. The quality's done. I've had those $50 quote unquote like patent leather belts fall apart before.
Yeah.
That's why it led me further afield 15 years ago to online to buy something that I knew was made by somebody who makes leather. And then that's what kind of surprised me. I was like, I thought that would be more ubiquitous in Alberta. I thought there would be more of that, because I think there's a huge market for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of there are quite a few like leather workers that do like a lot of custom work and stuff like scattered across Alberta. But they're like, if you take an example with like VR Satellite here in DeBolt, he's like 2 years backed up.
Yeah.
And because that's like all he does, just custom work. And that's like takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
And most of the guys that are still doing leather work they're like old school. They don't want to have anything to do with technology. And so what I'm doing, the market is fairly like there are a few other guys that are doing it, but it's most of the leathersmiths in Canada are just a little behind in the times when it comes to technology.
I suppose they would be.
It's just like word of mouth, yeah.
Where do you source your leather?
I source my leather from the States, from Weaver Leather.
Okay.
Yeah, I used to from a guy here in Sunset House, but I wasn't able to get the quality that I wanted, because like with my belts, I didn't care what it's going to cost in materials. It's going to be like the best of the best.
Right.
And this guy in Sunset House, he was selling really good stuff, but largely also the color and consistency, it just wasn't consistent, and I need that.
Yeah,
and so I had to go.
Part.
Yeah, and so I had to go to the States.
Okay, I was going to ask about that. All your fittings and everything, your Chicago bolts, all that stuff, that come out of the States as well?
So the hardware, like the stainless steel roller buckles and the Chicago screws, those I get from the Amish in Ontario.
Okay, because I was thinking like the buckle itself at being an 1 3/4 inch, that can't be common.
Yeah, no, it's actually a harness buckle is what it is.
Oh,
yeah, because
okay.
the Amish, they use those real heavy duty buckles for their harness for their horses and whatnot.
Yeah.
Okay, that's wild.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
that makes sense. It also just kind of occurred to me that I need horse tack as a belt, which probably means I should spend more time in the gym, or I'm just really hard on gear. I don't know. When you're wearing livestock equipment, it's like
Sure.
No, is what it is.
Don't beat yourself up too bad.
New year, new me.
Is there other things in your product line, like other than the man belt? Do you have any other kind of go-to things that are consistent sellers for you? Is that like that's got to be your number one thing? And then is there other stuff too that's?
Yeah, so it is. I sell probably about 90% of everything I sell is the man belt.
Yep.
And then I have probably 6 or 7% of is going to be like the 1.5 inch. I do sell a 1.5 inch belt on there because sometimes the 1 3/4 inch wide belt doesn't fit in guys' loops. It's not very common, but and then also if they have like a phone case where the extra wide belt won't fit in or something, then they'll order the narrower one.
Right.
So yeah, and then I have a few other things. I got like wallets and rifle slings, guitar straps, stuff like that on there.
Nice.
But yeah, it's just kind of to have on there and as an option for guys. But I sell mostly the man belt, and that's what I pitch on Instagram. Sure. So when guys see that, that's what they go to the website for. And so
well, there's a lot to be said too for I don't want to say staying in your lane. That's not what I mean. I don't mean like that, but I think there's a lot of value in focusing on one good product and really delivering that, as opposed to trying to do everything and then not really making any progress.
100%. It's really easy to get diversified. Like, like I talk with like my friends and stuff, and they're like, when are you going to add more products? And I'm like, just find something that works and you just stick to it, because it's hard enough to make one thing work. And when you do that, then you just go all out on it.
And you're a sole, do you have anyone else helping you with any of this stuff, or is it all you all the time?
Right now it's up until like about 2 weeks ago, when I broke my ankle snowboarding, I had to hire my younger brother. So I'm teaching him the trade. And he's doing really good. He's catching on real quick. He's got an eye for detail when he sets his mind to it. And so I'm really excited. I'm hoping that, we can continue that way for both him and I. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Gotta be like a little family thing. And
yeah, well, that's the best way to do it. I mean, if you've got a successful model, you've got something that's working, and you can bring in, family's always the best, right? If you can train that in it, it's a useful skill.
Mm-hmm.
Were there any other skills that interested you kind of growing up? Was it something that like, was there any other paths that kind of could have materialized for you?
It looks like you're a lumberjack online. Like,
yeah, I actually did.
Therapeutic.
I've done quite a few things. Like I actually did arboristry for a few years. It was like, and I actually still have all the gear. So where you climb up trees and cut them down from the top in residential areas and stuff.
Yeah.
So I did enjoy that, but it was a little bit too risky for my liking. It's not something I wanted to do when I, get married and have a family, and not really my thing. So kind of veered away from that. I also did, I really enjoy mechanicking, and kind of also thinking outside the box and that, and like inventing stuff. I really enjoy doing that.
Yeah.
I kind of went down a bit of a road of, electrical engineering. If I were to ever go in for anything, it would be probably electrical engineering. I really enjoy that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, man.
Yeah. And so I actually did. I just about started, before I went full in on the leather work, I just about started going full in on making cabins. I did, I made a 14 by 39 foot log cabin with like beautiful big square logs.
Nice.
With a 3/4 loft. And yeah, so I really enjoyed doing that, and it sold in like a couple months on Kijiji. And so I was like, just about went down that, but.
Okay.
So a few things. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a friend of mine, his dad used to build cabins. So if, man, I don't even know if it's still there. There's in Jasper, I think it's Sunwapta. There's a bunch of cabins on the south side of south end of Jasper. There's kind of a cabin resort. He built all those.
Okay.
Back in the day, and that's what he did, was build these big log cabins and stuff like that. That's yet another fantastic skill. That's these things are passing away in a lot of ways. That's why I'm always intrigued when I see a young person taking a skill that's, I want to say dying, but as a country, we've kind of outsourced a lot of this stuff. It's getting made in Mexico, or it's getting made in India and whatever, because, for whatever reason. And these are essentially these Western skills. I mean, they do that. Leather working is kind of ubiquitous worldwide, but when it comes to making like a Western style belt and stuff like that, I think it's, like I said, I think there's a market for that stuff here. And when I see like a young person like yourself kind of seeing that and saying, well, I could do that, I just have to learn how to do it. And then figuring out how to market it, taking it to that next level, because I remember when I watched your videos, I was like, these are like a tad more polished than just some guy with his iPhone, trying to sell belts on Instagram. So by taking it that next level, you're like, you're learning that craft and then learning the craft that goes around it. And then taking it to that next thing. I mean, you've got a lot of runway ahead of you. You're 20 years old. Like if you wanted to take on electrical engineering, I'm sure it's well within your wheelhouse to do so. But
yeah, well, I was curious, how long did it take before you had, the product, like where you were, like you're building these belts and you're like, okay, this is the one, like I'm happy with this. Like how long did it take, like from the time you started thinking about the idea and then actually doing it?
Right. Yeah. So like I really found out that like the market was really good for belts. Probably about, cause I started in like 2018. I found that out probably like 2021. Okay. And then that's kind of when I was like, I found the man belt, guys just loved it. And then kind of went from there. So yeah, about like 2-3 years after starting.
And just a follow-up kind of question to that, was it, you were making the belt and then like you already wanted to make belts, or was like you were looking for a hole in the market that you could fill, or was it a bit of both?
Yeah, I think it was, I mean, like a lot of things in like business, sometimes you just have to get out there and just start doing things. And then you just automatically find like a chance product or something that just like, it's just like happens to work. Right. But you have to be in it long enough.
Right.
And so I wasn't sure what I was going to do, because I was trying to figure out like, how am I going to, one of my biggest motivators and driving factors in getting into leatherwork and business and entrepreneurship was that like one day I want to be able to provide for a family and not have financial stress and all that. Right. And so that's kind of why I stuck to that. So yeah, just kind of from there, I was thinking of going down maybe a couple other different routes with leatherwork, but it just, nothing else paid good enough to run a successful business than a belt did. So
how long does it take, like right off, just to make one man belt from start to finish?
So with the tools I have right now, it's about 15 to 20 minutes.
Oh, wow. So you've got it down.
I've got it down.
I'm assuming it took much longer in the beginning.
It did a lot longer, yeah. But when you start to get the hang of it, and then you start whittling things down and you start batching and all that stuff. Yeah. And it helps a lot. And so that's just kind of where it is now. But the thing is, it's like people, they look at how, they're like, oh, it only takes you that long, but then it's like they don't realize all the variable costs, in running a business and stuff. Sure. So
well, and I think when you're looking at something that's handmade, when you're looking at a boutique product that's handmade, that's locally made, that's made from the best components, best materials. Like I've learned the hard way and I think that's a great pitch that you have when you're saying like, hey, look, these other belts that you can buy at these various stores, they're not going to last. And it's, anybody who's ever put gear to the test knows there's two ways to go about it. You can buy the cheap gear, which you will have to buy again and again and again, because it will fail, or buy once, cry once, right? You buy it, and then that's the thing that you're going to have for, the next year and the next year. I've learned that forever in the shooting industry, like with gear. You get it out on a course, you get it out in the field, and maybe you didn't want to spend top tier money, and you get in some bad conditions, or you start working really hard, start running the equipment hard, and it fails.
Yeah.
And now you have to buy it again. And now all of a sudden you're like, I should have just paid the money up front and got the thing that would work for that purpose. So I think like when people know that, and they know the work that goes into it, they know the quality of it, but they also know that feeling of, I bought the cheaper of the two, or I bought the retail level thing, and now I'm disappointed because now I have to replace this piece of equipment that, I wanted to work. But yeah, I'm a big fan of the buy once, cry once.
Yeah.
I'm at that point in my life where I am buying my last winter coat.
Yeah.
Right? This thing's going to last to the end of my life. I'll pay the extra money, right? Unless I really beat it up. I mean, I'm not that old, but I look at it like that. Like, make the investment, and if it's something that's daily use, then you're gonna get that that performance out of it that you're looking for. When you started doing the leather stuff, was it something about the look or the leather or the lifestyle from that like Western culture that kind of interested you
and inspired me? I feel like what really hooked me to leather work was just like when I get into the leather shop, like I'd be doing other stuff on the farm and stuff, but then as soon as I'd get into the leather shop to make a few belts or something, or do some carving or whatever it might have been, my whole demeanor, my whole everything just totally calmed down. It was like, that was like my happy place,
Okay.
kind of, so to speak. And it was just like, every time I'd go in there, it's just like, just calm. It would just calm me, and it would just, my mind would have a chance to just, go through different things and process and clean out. And so,
yeah, kind of like you kind of enter that flow state where you're able to work on stuff and be creative.
Yeah.
Like, aside from music and the leather stuff, were there any other creative pursuits that you've taken on? Was art ever a thing for you, or was it just kind of like an analytical curiosity that kind of led you down that road?
Yeah, probably more of that. And, like I said, like earlier, like I really, really enjoyed, doing lots of drawings of different, like mechanical inventions that I wanted to make in the future. And I still plan on doing that. If, that's also part of the reason I got into business. I wanted, like, a lot of these things that I wanted to do when I was really young cost a lot of money.
Sure.
And so you got to figure out a way to make the money.
Finance your journey, right?
Yeah, that's right. And then, from there, once you earn the money, then you can start up a gig and start actually inventing some like really cool stuff. Cause I really enjoy doing that sort of thing. So
is there anything particular that you would share with us that's like really, like, as of right now, that you're like
classified Black Ops?
Yeah, exactly. The Skunk Works from Grovedale. But like, is there anything that's really got your curiosity or your attention right now?
Right now, well, I'm kind of in the what some would deem impossible, and people would also argue on the terminology of it, but like free energy. I'm kind of big into that, like the Tesla stuff.
Wow. So you just went right to the top.
Yeah. Right,
no stopping anywhere along the way.
No.
We'll go from leather belts to free energy, which is awesome.
It's like free energy, or like, cause I mean, obviously nothing's free. It always costs to make the product or make the motor or whatever it is, the device. Right. And so it's like free energy. I'm not exactly sure. People have different terminology for it, but yeah. So I really enjoy that. But then also like off-road vehicles. I got this, I think when I was like 9 years old, I had this like really, really clear vision in my mind of this off-road vehicle that was like, it had two parts, and like it steered in the middle, but then the whole underbody of each unit was track. And so then I started drawing stuff down. I was like, this actually might work, but obviously it would cost probably hundreds of thousands of dollars. So who knows if it'll ever happen.
Better hustle some belts. Yeah.
But,
get on that.
right. So
it's interesting when you mentioned the free energy thing. I remember a few years back kind of going down a rabbit hole on just kind of, because the world was ending, right, in 2020 or whatever. And so a lot of that stuff started to populate, all your social feeds. But this guy, I don't know, somewhere in the Middle East, I don't remember which country, but he had this machine that in a nutshell, it was a motor that ran an alternator that ran a battery that whatever is like a perpetual motion machine or perpetual kind of energies along the same thing.
Along the same lines. Yeah.
You fired it up and it's like, that thing will run forever. You can always plug into it because it was like a self-sustaining system.
Yeah.
At some point it might blow up because you would, whether you're
some part's going to overheat or
it's going to need grease or throw a belt or something like that. But it was a very cool concept.
Yeah. And I think that like the big thing largely is just understanding even like ether, like Nikola Tesla, he understood like the ether of the atmosphere, whereas it's, I think a lot of people don't quite understand. I mean, I don't fully understand it, but it's like tapping, because it's limitless energy all around us that obviously the lightning is working off of, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just a matter of capturing that. Like he invented a car that had the device in it. It was an electric car, and he ran it in the desert for 3 days at like 70 mile an hour, and it never stopped because he tapped into it. But There's a lot of theories and
Yeah, there's a whole thing about
And
how
there's-
space is electric. They're just
Yeah.
starting to find out that may actually be true.
yeah, there's a lot of wrong theories out there from like the research that I've done and the experimenting that I've done and stuff. There's
Yeah.
a lot of I guess BS, if you could, out there, and a lot of people fall for like YouTube videos that are like free energy.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's like this electric motor that's directly attached to a alternator that when they get it going, it works. And it's like the laws of conservation of energy doesn't work with that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's a lot of different theories out there, but
Yeah, there's a fantastic YouTube channel called the Y-Files where this guy AJ does these deep dives into like various conspiracy theories and stuff like that. They had an episode on free energy and some of the stuff that's kind of like come up over throughout history about, this guy had a car that runs on water and all these things about just how all these people like quietly disappeared over time or met with unfortunate ends. So, but really cool just to see like this happens all the time. So if it wasn't a real thing, if there wasn't some sort of availability to it, if it was a nothing burger, then nobody would ever talk about it. But it comes up all the time that there's better ways to do things.
Well, I think that's kind of like the case with what is it called, geothermal heating, where you like drill into the earth.
Oh yeah,
and then
isn't that like all of Iceland and Greenland and parts of
I'm
Norway?
Like, why don't we do that in Canada? Like, are we?
Well, we probably have to drill pretty far, but
Yeah, maybe.
yeah, we don't have a lot of serious volcanic activity. Like not like Norway where they've got like tons and tons of volcanoes and stuff like that.
I suppose, yeah.
But that makes sense. I mean, there's all kinds of that stuff out there.
Yeah.
I think on small scale, those kind of small energy generating reactors, but however they're doing it, I think that's where the money is at. Like, so many people these days, if you live on an acreage or live on a farm, you've got some sort of generator, some sort of backup farm, or some sort of backup power. Sorry, and wind power is nothing new, right? People have been using wind power to run the well on the farm for century.
Aerate the dugout.
Yeah, exactly. Right. That's and solar is pretty ubiquitous. It's just the batteries that suck, but we're getting better with that. But if you have some sort of power generation on small scale, that seems to be where you're not trying to power a city, but you're trying to power a farm or a series of farms. That seems to be where you'd have that market, because those people seem to be really, that's one of the neat things too, is people that live rural seem to be early adopters of these kind of technologies because they're more willing to kind of go out on a limb. They're kind of more willing to invest in something that keeps them off the grid a little bit, have that power in their own hands.
A little bit more rebel minded, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think, like yourself and people who live that way are a little bit freer from the constraints of like normal society, where they're kind of free to imagine things and then try to put them to work.
Yeah, and I think like the biggest thing that's, I mean, we would have free energy by now, 100%, if it wasn't for like for government and whatnot. There was as soon as you try and bring something like that to market that actually works, it's just like they can it. Yep. We had even just locally, like I don't know if it was 15, 20 years ago, one of my friends, he's a neighbor, he's like mid 60s, and he actually invested into this machine that one of his friends had made, and they were getting investors from all over the country, and it was a free energy machine, limitless energy,
right?
And then he was getting the patents for it and everything like that, and they had scientists coming all over to try and figure out how this thing worked.
Oh wow!
And then guys in black suits all came and shut everything down, and the inventor and all the guys that were like pushing this thing, they all just like kind of scattered. And I don't know if there was lots of probably threats and all that sort of thing. And
sure,
a lot of
that seems to be the story.
Yeah,
that whole episode of the Wi-Files, that's what it is. Like it's case study after case study of someone invents something that seems to, by all accounts, work. They get it just to the point of getting it to market, and then all of a sudden it's kind of just disappeared.
Well, you don't, and it's not a big stretch to the imagination to figure out why. Like if you look at where governments are invested, they're all, where do you think their pension funds are invested, right? In all these big utility companies.
Yeah,
right.
100%.
Oh, like, this pension fund owns 30% of this big utility. They're not about to let that die, right?
No.
So it's kind of that's a tough one.
Yeah, and you see this with Tesla, like you see with Elon Musk, developing a cost-effective electric car where people can actually afford this thing, and they're quite popular and people are buying them. But it's the energy generation side that kind of holds the whole thing up, because we're still having to burn coal or natural gas or whatever to kind of get that power to market. So the technology exists.
The infrastructure is not there either, right?
Yeah, well, exactly.
The system's not robust enough to deal with that.
Well, most of our major cities, even here, was last winter we had rolling blackouts throughout Alberta because of the power drain because of the cold.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, I mean, that should be a big wake up call to everybody that maybe we should be rethinking about how we're doing things, because if it gets too hot or too cold, the grid goes down.
Well, and I think it's, we don't want to get too sidetracked here, but even if you look at the utility companies, you look at your bill and it's like, oh, the distribution charge and this charge and that charge is like, oh, this pays for maintenance of the whatever line. You're like, whatever, bitch, that pipeline was put in the ground 50 fucking years ago. You're not doing any maintenance on it. It'll just be like, you remember last summer in Calgary where the water main broke, and you got this major city in a first world country that doesn't have water. Why? Because they're not actually reinvesting the money that they steal from you back into the utility. They're simply stealing it and getting fatter and richer.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And that's where, inventions like free energy or just that thinking outside the box really, really comes into it. As far as your interest in Tesla, did that come from books, from reading about Tesla, or did that come from, the deep dive into the internet?
More of the deep dive into the internet. Yeah. Like, it's just when I started thinking about this stuff, and I was like, this actually might be a possibility. And then I started researching it. And there was probably 95% of everything I was researching that everyone was screaming free energy and stuff. I just, you have to kind of throw it in the garbage because it's not legit. But there's 5% that's actually makes sense, the circuitry and everything that they have set up and whatnot. So yeah, it was more the deep dive in the internet. But then it was really cool. I was listening to a podcast that Joe Rogan did a while ago with this guy that used to work on Area 51 in the 1980s, I think it was. And
You're talking about Bob Lazar.
Yeah, Bob Lazar. There you go.
Yeah. I'm well familiar with Bob Lazar.
Yeah.
I'm a UFO guy from way back.
Yeah, but they those UFOs. They got free energy machines in them, right? And they don't know how they work and everything, but they pulled so much power, as much as they could draw from that machine, and nothing heated up, nothing happened, right? It's limitless. So
yeah, the I don't know, the urban myth, I guess you'd call it at this point, is it's a gravity wave generator is what they're doing. So who knows? We're in a weird place with that kind of quote unquote disclosure right now in the world. I'd love to do a whole episode just about that. I could probably do 10 hours just talking about aliens. UFOs and the crazy stuff that's going on. But there does seem to be, with modern physics, there does seem to be some correlation with that technology being not only feasible, but not that far outside of what we have as far as our technology now. I mean, they say that the military is 25 years ahead of where we're at, and that's what right now they're talking about. The dawn of the quantum computer. So the quantum computers now are about to reach a threshold at which everything that's been encrypted currently can be instantly decrypted. So basically all data that defense has and whatever data companies, it's all stored in encrypted servers. And quantum computing would mean that all of it could be decrypted instantaneously. So all the information in the world would be accessible to whoever wants it with the quantum computer. And Google apparently has just kind of reached this threshold with their quantum computer. So to think that somewhere on the planet is something 25 years in advance of what we're currently looking at, which is this speculative dawn of AI and quantum computing, I think at that point, the possibilities are endless. Like all of the science fiction, most of it kind of becomes possible at this point, where it's like all these crazy conspiracy theories about what could be out there all of a sudden becomes like well within these realm of possibilities now. So it's cool to see like you're thinking about that and you and moving in that direction and kind of taking in that information. Is there any particular like places that you get your information? Like, is it primarily from podcasts, or is there particular like YouTube channels you're looking at?
Yeah, it's been a while since I've like really dove into that, because I was like, I just have to focus on other things, and then one day I'll come back to that. But there's actually a really, really good PDF. It's, I think, 3,500 pages. This guy put together thousands and thousands of patents of all these free energy machines within the last 150 years. Like free energy, anti-gravity, all that sort of stuff. It's called, if I can remember, Practical Guide to Free Energy Devices.
Okay, I'll track that down. I'll attach that PDF in the description, or a link to it, because there's people that listen to this podcast that are probably going to be endlessly interested in a document like that for sure. I myself will take a look at it too, even though I'm not skilled or gifted enough in either mathematics or mechanics, but I like the broad strokes.
Yeah, you'd probably find it an interesting read. Like you go through like the index and stuff, and pick a couple different things, and it's pretty interesting what some people have done. Like,
yeah, for sure. I think it's really cool that we're in a place in human history where it's like we're talking about like quantum mechanics and all this like super science fiction-y stuff, but at the same time, I find like great value in things like leather belts.
Yeah, like, it's quite the I don't want to say the opposite thing, but you're like very well grounded in something that's like almost primal.
Yeah,
like making a piece of leather that a man wears, and then the who knows, maybe the man belt will make it to Mars.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is like
it's wild, man.
I love to see the innovation, and I love to see the that kind of endless curiosity. I think that's an important thing, and I think that gets snuffed out in so many people, especially young people, because of their online devices, the screen time, and maybe that's a common thing where we had a guest on a few episodes ago, Josh Pofowicz out of Fairview. He's another young guy who's doing blacksmithing work. He's doing a little bit of leather works, taxidermy, awesome. And it's the same sort of story where he was homeschooled, and maybe outside of that mental zeitgeist of school, of the tech side, where it's aimed at young people specifically to kind of capture the mind. Mm-hmm. But you're seeing people like yourself who are still curious about the way the world works and their place in it, and kind of how you're gonna approach that seems to be a lot different than what we see from I guess you would say like the I don't want to call it the normal world, but there's like a secular world.
Right.
And did growing up like with your family, I'm guessing you guys had a basis, like a faith base coming from that. Did that play a hand at all in kind of like your inspiration to do this stuff?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, everything, like we grew up with a very strong faith. And so like when you grow up with that, a lot of things and choices and decisions you make in your life, how do you say, like they spring from that base, right?
Right.
And so, yeah, I would say definitely.
Yeah. Maybe a few less, a few less temptations or bad decisions. So you're kind of freer to explore the world as you understand it.
Yeah, that's right. And like a big thing with today, with a lot of people, is very sad is they just get so sidetracked with so many things that are absolutely meaningless in life. Like social media can be one of them, unless you're using it for like good things and it's benefiting you or whatever, right? And so they get very sidetracked with like just things of the world that don't profit anything, and then it's like, where did my life just go, right?
Yeah,
in time. So
yeah, the minutes become hours and hours become days.
Well, people like nowadays, they'll literally just spend hours looking at their phone all day. Like, what'd you do on Saturday? Nothing.
Yeah.
They literally looked at their phone for 8 hours, and you're like, well, whew.
Yeah, it's it's a trap. I think it's a tool. Like you said, it's for any reason you can use that tool, be it for knowledge growth, for networking, for growing a business. It's interesting that through the internet we have access to all of the world's knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
It's all there. Like any curiosity that comes to your head, you can ask it the question. And I've been using like the AI search for quite a bit of that now because Google was okay with it. You could kind of ask Google questions, but not really.
Grok's pretty legit.
Yeah, but now you can just ask questions of like whatever AI, and it just searches for documents, right? It's things it doesn't give you its opinion. It gives you what facts or at least what documentation it can find in that vein or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And you start getting answers to, or at least access to data, but we don't use it for that predominantly. We're using it for like these vanity projects.
People are watching 15-second TikTok videos about cats for hours, like 15 seconds at a time. It's crazy, man.
Well, it's like dopamine spikes, right?
Yeah.
And because like you have like a base level of dopamine, and if you that's the problem with like so much depression in today's world is people, they drain their dopamine baseline down where they don't, because your dopamine affects your mood tremendously, and if you run out of dopamine, your baseline comes down low, then you just you get depressed and not motivated to do anything. So it's a very much a trap. You want to like try and stay out of that more than not, and keep going on the wave, right?
Yeah. And we talked a little bit with I think it was Ben. We were talking about kind of the idea of dopamine and not all dopamine being equal, in that dopamine that comes from accomplishing something or making something or being outdoors, exploring, seeing the world, it's of a better quality than the dopamine you're getting from seeing the thing you like on the internet, or the vanity post, or the, hey, someone liked my TikTok video or whatever, right? It seems like if you're, especially for a young person, if you're raised in a way that you're shown that your worth comes from what you create or how you treat people and who you are, your relationships, that seems to establish a stronger baseline, like you're saying, of dopamine. So you're a little bit better regulated. You're not so up and down.
Yeah, that's right.
So growing up for you, you grew up on a farm? Was it kind of like the day-to-day work chores from a young age? Was it, and was it like ranching, or was it like crop farming?
It was actually very much a variety farm. We had about 300. Well, we farmed about 400 acres of hay.
Okay.
And then we had everything like cats, dogs, yaks, donkeys, mules, horses, goats, cows. Like we had.
I guess your parents had this enormous supply of labor.
Yeah, that's right. And yeah, that's pretty much how it ran. So yeah, we were going in a lot of different directions. It wasn't per se efficient farm, but it was a lifestyle.
Yeah.
So
you guys were selling a little bit of hay, but then mostly just like kind of animals for your own food or amusement?
Yeah, it was more of like a self-sufficient farm. So like we pretty much like, I think like one year we didn't ever even go to the grocery store for any staples. Like everything came from our farm.
Nice.
And except like obviously spices and some things like that, and salt and but yeah, like we were pretty much down to where it was like probably like 85 to 90% of everything came from our farm. And we were like off the grid too, for the most part, solar system.
Okay.
And all that. I actually installed the majority of our last solar system, was a 10K solar system. So that was really good. But yeah, it's pretty much a self-sufficient variety farm.
And are you still raising animals and still doing that whole thing? Is it still?
So most of us, within the last about year, most of us have kind of dispersed, kind of moved out, and it is kind of time to move on our ways. And so it's the farm is downsized quite a bit now and stuff. So
Well, they lost all their free labor. I don't blame them. I would downsize too.
Do you look at some of these animals and think, man, that'd make a great belt, or like a yak belt?
Yeah, actually, what probably would make a really good belt, I know this from I would be probably moose hide.
Yeah,
it would make a really good belt because the fiber structures are very tight.
Yeah,
and I know this because my sisters, they actually do brain tanning.
Okay.
And like moose and deer are the best, but especially moose because the grain structure, like elk is very foamy, but moose is really good because it's very tight. So I would imagine that would make a really good belt.
Interesting. Do you hunt?
Actually, yeah, I do some hunting and my sisters too. So yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, I want to get a little bit more into it within the next few years, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you're looking to, continue on that off the grid or subsistence lifestyle, there's few better ways to get protein.
Yeah, that's right.
So I guess like looking at how you were raised, is that kind of how you see your future? Is kind of sticking out on your own, kind of continuing that more of a rural, off-grid, self-sufficient lifestyle? Is that kind of how you envision it?
Yeah, I would say kind of like not quite as extreme as like we grew up, because like obviously you don't need as many animals and be going as many directions as we were to have a self-sufficient farm. Like you really just need like a good garden, cows and chickens for eggs and milk and meat, and that's pretty much the majority. And so I definitely see myself doing that and raising my family that way. But I'd like to be a little bit more in society a little bit more, not too closed off kind of thing. Sure.
And I guess growing up in Grovedale, because one of the things I've noticed is like Sexsmith and Wembley and Beaver Lodge, and that seemed always very tied to Grand Prairie. Like I grew up with a lot of kids that were from there.
Once you cross the river, though, you're in the hood.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like Grovedale always kind of seemed like the
Grovedale Mafia.
Like a little bit of a separate area from Grand Prairie. But was there a really I guess a close-knit local community over there in Grovedale?
We were actually not super close with many of the people in Grovedale. Like we tried to be like involved in the community quite a bit, but there's not like a whole lot of young people out there from what I experienced growing up. And so it was a little bit more sparse in that way. But yeah, it's definitely it's a redneck community, 100%. And I think it's like in a good way. Like it's kind of its own little deal, and it is kind of cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I've known a few people from there. It just seems like a little bit removed from like you say, this north of the river, so to speak, I guess.
Yeah, once we're off camera, I know quite a few people from Grovedale. It'd be interesting to see who you know out there too.
Yeah.
So, as far as your business goes, are there any plans in the near future to grow, to expand? Is there anything like on the leather side that's that you'd love to move into next as far as growing in scale?
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna keep going where I'm at. I kind of have some goals to where I feel like I can scale my system that I have right now. I have some goals where I feel I can scale that to, and then after that, I think I'd like to add some dress belts for guys, as I think that's going to be a big hit, especially for existing customers. And then also a ladies belt, because I get a lot of ladies that are in the blue collar workforce have the same problem.
Nice.
So, I kind of want to go down that route. And then I think eventually probably start up a YouTube channel
wild.
and do different things. And it can be connected right with my store. That can be kind of promotional, because you get like YouTube channels and they have their own store, and so that's kind of I think where I might go.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it seems like if you have some sort of online presence these days, it's almost expected that you have, not that you're selling something, but you have something that you're bringing to market. I know just for this podcast, we I published, self-published book, my writing, so I've got a couple of books, and then we built up the web store as kind of like an ancillary way for people to support the podcast if they wanted to, because podcasting at this level in a small market is not very lucrative.
Right.
But if people want to support the podcast, they can do that sort of thing.
I actually meant to ask, or one of these days at the end, I'll because we always typically drink Coors. We'll make the pitch to Coors that they could massively expand their market and bring awareness to their product if they would sponsor us.
100%. Absolutely.
We'll have to talk about that with them later.
Yeah, that's part of the corporate outreach program that we're going to work on.
Right.
Yeah.
We have goals too.
Yeah.
That's great.
Building a social media following, and I didn't really think about it as a following because this is like I enjoy doing this. Like I enjoy sitting down with interesting people and having these conversations, and I'm just curious about people, and I'm really curious about interesting people. I'm curious about people who think outside the box, who look at the world and say, you know, everybody's going this way. I'm going to go this way. I'm going to go my own way. I want to figure something else out on my own because, you know, I think the 99% who go the beaten path, we need all those people because they kind of keep the whole thing going. Mm-hmm. But if we don't have the 1%, if we don't have like the Elon Musks of the world who are thinking way outside the box, then humanity doesn't go anywhere. Yeah. Right. We're kind of stuck. We need those visionaries. We need those people who are willing to take risks. We need those people who are going to do something like look at a very ancient craft like leatherworking and say, now I can take this as a viable business into, you know, 2025 and make a superior product. Mm-hmm. And with a little bit of marketing and stuff like that, I can get it out there. And I think it's inspiring, especially for young people to see that and to say, like, you know, the world isn't hopeless. It looks like a wild and crazy place right now where no one knows what's going to happen day to day. But I think you're still, you know, you still have a hand on the tiller. You still have a hand on the wheel. Mm-hmm. You know, you can still steer your life in a way that, like that is your own. You don't have to be the wage slave. You don't have to do the thing where you're doing the job you hate or going to take the courses in a university that really you don't care to do. Like you can go out on your own. You can learn from, you can learn from YouTube. You can go to different places and learn from, especially some of these older folks who, have these skills who might not be with us for that much longer. And then when they're gone, that knowledge is gone forever. Mm-hmm. So getting that kind of information and bringing it forward for the next generation is a really important thing.
Yeah, no, it is 100%.
So I guess kind of just to wrap it up, if people want to get a hold of you, if people want to track you down on social media, where can they find you?
Well, they can find me on Instagram so it'll be like the @ at Stewart Leather Goods, and Facebook it's the same thing. It's just Stewart Leather Goods, and I'm not on YouTube at the moment. And so, and then if they want to go to my store where I sell my products, it's just stewartleather.store. And they just type that in and it takes them right to my website. And then if they want to like contact me personally, you can just leave a note through my website. I'd have like a little messaging system on the bottom. They can leave me a message or something. So
okay, right on. Yeah. Well, I mean, I thank you so much for coming, and hopefully people see this and get in touch with you, because I'm wearing the man belt right now, and it's fantastic. I got to say, like that extra 1/4 inch of thick of width makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. I really appreciate you coming on. We'll have links to all that stuff in the description here. Man, we'll have to have you back on in the future to see kind of where this goes.
It'd be great.
Absolutely.
It's a heck of a story. So you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, CastBox. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. You can follow us on Instagram, X, Facebook. Check out our website at thegrayrange.com, where you can find every episode of the podcast, the blog, merch, such as these cool shirts that we're wearing. You can find the book on there, the latest book, Whiskey, Pain, and Holocaust. And I think that's it, man.
I think that's everything. Yeah. Thanks a lot for coming, man. Great to meet you.
Wow, it was a pleasure. I appreciate you calling me up and hope to be on here in the future one day.
Awesome,
man. We'd love to see what you come up with.
100%.
This is the Gray Range Podcast. Out.